A few weeks ago, you said that housing wasn't a primary federal responsibility. That got some criticism from both the opposition and some housing critics. They say you have levers like immigration as well as taxation that should make it a primary responsibility. Do you regret your previous comment?
Welcome back to Northern Perspective, everyone. I'm Cypher.
And I'm Fox. Trudeau has to deal with yet another scandal that, surprise, surprise, the mainstream media is not reporting on. I mean, after all, you can't bite the hand that feeds you, especially if it's fed you nearly $1.6 billion. Am I right, guys?
Help us keep this channel growing strong by hitting that like button to help push this out to more viewers, and subscribe to the channel so you're notified of our next episode. If you would like to support the channel, please give us a super thanks by clicking the button right below the video, or buy us a coffee or a pizza via the Buy Us a Coffee link in the description. Now, a lot of you would have questions about immigration and the effect on the housing crisis. In order for us to talk about that, we need to lay out the context. So first, let's go back to November of 2022, where former Immigration Minister Sean Fraser announces new targets for Canada.
The reality is you don't need to dig into the stats to understand that there was a million jobs available in the Canadian economy. You need to walk down Main Street of any community in Canada. You're going to see help wanted signs in the window. This is the economic context that we're living through right now. This year's immigration levels plan will help address some of these challenges that I've outlined by setting a new target from 431,000 this year to 465,000 next year, 485,000 in 2024, and 500,000 in the year 2025. These targets are supported by a plan that's going to leverage new tools, not only to get people here, but to meet the specific needs of the Canadian economy.
Meet the specific needs of the Canadian economy. Who cares if there's nowhere for these people to live, right?
Well, and all these jobs he's talking about, the reason they're not filled is because most of them are minimum wage or part-time jobs. You can't afford to live with a job like that in this country anymore. And instead of, forcing employers to pay the employees more, what they do is they just bring in more people that will have to take those jobs because there are no other jobs available. It's like a horrible pyramid scheme. Pretty much. So you're bringing in cheap labor for people because, they're willing to do it because they have to. Well, and then what incentive does the employer have to pay a living wage? They don't. Zero incentive. Now, let's move to just a couple weeks ago where Trudeau was forced to answer a question on the housing crisis during his trip to PEI on August 21st, 2023.
Hi, Mr. Trudeau. Mackenzie Grew with Global. A few weeks ago, you said that housing wasn't a primary federal responsibility. That got some criticism from both the opposition and some housing critics. They say you have levers like immigration as well as taxation that should make it a primary responsibility. Do you regret your previous comment?
The point I made was that the previous government had completely walked away from housing.
So, at the beginning of his time in power, he stated that he's going to bring in affordable homes for everyone. Then a couple of weeks ago, he says, this is not a federal responsibility. And now he's saying that what he really meant is that the Conservatives didn't do anything. He's like...
If he backs up any harder, he's going to hit his dog in the driveway. Like, I have never seen backpedaling like that before.
Well, and it's pretty funny because he's literally going up against the former Conservative Minister of Housing, Pierre Poilievre. And there's no argument here. Like, what could more have been done to address housing back then? Yes, absolutely. More can always be done. And it's tough because the Conservatives were in a minority government, if everyone remembers. So it's not like they could just lay the hammer down and slam things through the House of Commons and make laws that they strongly believe in, because they could have been voted down, right? So you have to be careful in a minority government unless you have somebody like Jagmeet Singh, who's like the Conservatives don't do that. They operated with some integrity, and were able to actually execute an agenda and got us out of the 2008 housing crisis.
Well, and that's it. Harper got us through that market crash, like the housing market crash. And, you know, maybe housing did increase after that, but it didn't double the way it has during Trudeau's time in office. I cannot believe that after 8 years, Trudeau is still blaming the guy before him.
Well, that's the playbook of the left, right? When in doubt, blame whoever you can. So, anyway, it's not surprising, but it's still just as infuriating. So now, let's take a look at a report from CTV on the economic position Canadians are in as of just a few days ago. So this is an excerpt from that article. With the cost of living consistently on the rise, more Canadians are continually turning to credit, with the average credit card balance now standing at $4,000, according to a new report from TransUnion. Data that came in from the TransUnion's Q2 2023 Credit Industry Insights report shows a 4.2% increase, or $94.8 billion, in Canadian household debt compared to the previous year, with a total debt of $2.34 trillion in debt for Canadians. $2.34 trillion, everybody. And that went up by almost $100 billion.
Let's take a look at the report that CTV is referring to. Just look at the state that Canadians are in. $26,987 is the average car loan. How's that push for electric vehicles doing for us, Justin? Over $4,100 is the average balance Canadians are carrying on their credit cards, which is up a massive 9.41% from a year ago. Installment loans, mortgages. This is ridiculous, and all while Freeland is telling us how well the economy is doing.
Yeah, she just continues to say, no, I know Canadians are struggling, but we're giving out these little pockets of allowance of money that is actually your money that we're stealing from you, but we're giving it back to you and trying to tell you that it's us being generous. Like, Canadians can't afford to have any more money stolen from them. Look at. They can't afford anything, which is why we've borrowed another $100 billion worth of capital in a year. And stuff is just getting more expensive. So that number is going to go up by Q2 of next year. Like, this is the state that we're in, folks.
Not only that, but our government doesn't do anything to help encourage manufacturing and production within Canada. I should specify that our government doesn't do anything to encourage Canadians to purchase things that are made within Canada. Take this for example. I was at the grocery store the other day with my son and we were looking at strawberries. Ontario grown strawberries were $5.99 for a little container. Then you could get the Mexican ones on sale for $2.99. Now, I didn't end up buying any strawberries, but most people seeing that are going to go, money's tight right now. If I want strawberries, I'm going to buy the $2.99 ones that were produced in Mexico and trucked here, as opposed to the ones that were grown by a Canadian, providing security and Canadian jobs here in Canada.
Yeah, and Pierre has made this point time and time again.
If only somebody could have seen this coming.
Well, everybody saw this coming.
Right, but if only somebody, sat down, actually analyzed the immigration system, compared that to the nationwide housing market, formalized it into a report, and then gave it to Justin Trudeau, maybe in June 2022.
Oh, right. Yeah, that would have been helpful, which is why it's going to be a significant problem for Justin Trudeau that this, in fact, did happen.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was warned in June 2022 by Secretary of the Cabinet Janice Charette that his immigration policy since taking office in 2015 triggered Canada's housing affordability crisis. Charette, appointed by Trudeau less than a month earlier, directly blamed him for Canada's escalating housing prices and severe housing shortage. Trudeau's response was to ignore the warning and announce that he would bring in more immigrants. He also blamed the provinces for, quote unquote, not stepping up to fix the housing problem.
Quote, "The purpose of this note is to provide you with an analytic summary of the report's findings," end quote, wrote Charette in a classified memorandum, report by Canada Housing and Mortgage Corporation, Canada's housing supply shortage obtained by the countersignal. The memo was sent directly to Justin Trudeau. Quote, "There is broad agreement among experts that home building has been insufficient in comparison with housing demand in recent years, particularly with the increase in immigration since 2015. Quote. Now, this is somebody in Trudeau's government, okay? This isn't somebody that is on the opposition. So no one is trying to place any political blame here. It's nonpartisan. It's within his own government. Just to make that clear. Continuing on. The memo states that Canada's housing supply shortage is the key factor causing the affordability crisis, and the pace of building homes cannot meet needs by 2030 to restore affordability.
CHMC projects that the housing stock will grow by approximately 2.3 million between 2021 and 2030, and when it incorporates economic factors alongside demographic factors, it projects that an additional 3.5 million additional housing units are needed beyond current projections to restore affordability. The memo said that the 223,000 units built in 2021 fell short of the estimated yearly 665,000 which were required, which, quote, would be significantly more ambitious, end quote, than the 3.5 million units the federal government budgeted for in 2022.
So, over a year ago, Trudeau was warned by a person within his own government that this is not sustainable. It's not sustainable as it is. It hasn't been sustainable since 2015. Trudeau's response to this, 5 months later, trots out the immigration minister saying, we're going to bring in even more people, despite being told that immigration is a huge problem for the housing supply in Canada.
And again, for the record, Cypher and I just want to state that we're not against immigration. We are against immigration when you don't have homes and services available, not only for the people that you're bringing in, but for the people that are already here.
Well, I think it's fair to say we're not against immigration. We're not against any type of policy. We're against policy that doesn't make sense, regardless of what the topic is.
So when you have Canadians that are already struggling to find affordable housing, to feed themselves, to feed their kids, and you're bringing in even more people to fight for those same resources, does that make sense?
Here's what I would be doing if I were Trudeau. I'd fire my housing minister, number one, because he was also the immigration minister. So he was, he screwed up one file, and now he gets to screw up another one even more than it already is. So what I would be doing is I would be taking a look at immigration very closely. I would be putting a temporary restriction on it, in that we need to be performing a specific analysis on the jobs that we are desperately lacking in Canada, including medical professionals, including tradespeople. And then I would instruct the minister to put together a program that screens out all of the positions that are deemed non-critical. So you are going to see a decrease in immigration. Maybe. Unless there's a whole bunch of these people that have been waiting for 3 years to get into Canada that are tradespeople and medical professionals. So you prioritize those people and get them in, and you get rid of all this red tape and all of the BS at the municipal levels to get these houses built. The government doesn't have to pay for them, but the government can provide incentives to get them built. And that's what Pierre and the Conservatives are talking about. So, is the problem immigration? No. The problem is the amount of people you're bringing in because of immigration, and the type of people that you're bringing in. Type being, what's their job? Doesn't matter where they're from. They can do the job, bring him in. But he was warned, did nothing, doesn't care. What was it that Katie Telford said?
Of course, the Prime Minister reads any documents he does receive.
Pretty sure he doesn't read a damn thing.